Ladies and gentlemen, Silent Mike back with another video answering your questions. So leave your comments below what you want to cover in the next video coming up. New videos Monday and Thursday. Like this video, let's see if we can get 1,000 likes. My friends, today I'm taking a question from my guy Ghost on the, he's a homie from Twitch. He hangs out on Twitch. We're live streaming on Twitch every single day if you want to check it out. But basically ask me what's optimal or what's the best way for a powerlifter to eat nutrition-wise. And to be honest, nutrition is a complicated subject because it does depend slightly on you and your personal goals, your lifestyle, and then it also depends on obviously your long-term goals for your activity itself. Powerlifters, in general, old school powerlifters are always telling people to eat up, eat up, eat up, Snickers, Cheez-Its, Chex Mix, Coca-Cola, beers, get as big as you can and you will get stronger. And although gaining some weight, body fat, or muscle does help, I don't necessarily think that's optimal as powerlifting specifically, if we're talking about what fuels a powerlifter, the best nutrition for a powerlifter, a competitive powerlifter, because it is a weight class sport. For those that are new to powerlifting or don't understand, it's very similar to wrestling or other sports of that nature where there's set weight classes. And the biggest you can be per weight class is probably going to give you a slight advantage, right? If I'm competing in the 181 pound class and I weigh 170, I'm going to be at a disadvantage to someone who weighs 182 and cuts down to 181 for that meet. So what we want to obviously put on, because it's a strength sport, is as much muscle as we can and as little fat. Fat obviously isn't as productive as a tissue. It's not as strong and it doesn't move mass like muscle does, but there is some advantage to having a little cushion sometimes depending on your build, your age, your experience, because it can change leverages in how you lift weights. Often if you're a little bit thicker, muscle obviously is doing the movement, but a little bit thicker can help with a bench press, even a squat sometimes. You get some cushion around you and it helps. There's multiple ways that we can get strong. There's pathways to get strong. One is kind of the efficiency of the movement. So no matter what you do, the more efficient at a movement you become, the better, right? So as a squatter, if you're brand new and your movement pattern isn't very good, learning the skill of the squat and refining the skill of the squat and ingraining that habit over time, over weeks, years, months, tons of repetition makes you a better squatter, right? The skill itself. The same thing with shooting a free throw as a basketball player. The more free throws you shoot, the more lined in and that's built into your habit, your discipline. The more repetition, the more skill, the better you are at the movement. The other one with powerlifting or strength is muscle itself. The bigger the muscle, the more potential it has, the more output it has. The last one is kind of neural efficiency. Throwing, pushing, explosive movements, and lifting itself. Your connection from your brain to tell your muscles to fire and how hard they fire with your ligaments and tendons is also something that is trained through strength training. And that's obviously what carries over the muscle, building the muscle, and the neural efficiency is what carries over to other sports. That's why football players, runners, jumpers, etc. lift weights, because they want that neural efficiency so they can put more power, more impact into the ground or into their sport themselves. Now, again, there's three of those are kind of the main things that help us get strong, but to build more muscle, to recover better from training session to training session, to handle more volume, which is sets times reps times weight, which is the most important factor in gaining strength because it hits all of those. More volume builds more muscle. More volume means more repetition, so we're getting better at the movement, the skill itself, and more volume itself allows us to get more repetitions, which also, again, builds that neural efficiency. To recover from those things and to build more muscle, we need to be eating. And hopefully by now you guys understand kind of what calorie maintenance means. It means I'm eating a certain amount of calories a day, a week, a year that allows me to stay the same body weight I am right now. A calorie deficit means that I'm eating below what my body needs and then thus I will lose weight. And then a calorie surplus means that I'm eating slightly above what I need, or I guess a bunch above what I need, and I then will gain weight. So I think the most efficient nutritional strategy for a powerlifter is obviously a calorie surplus depending on your weight class and depending on your experience. When you're a beginner powerlifter, you can gain a lot of strength and be very efficient, making tons of mistakes in your programming, your sleep, your food. It doesn't matter. You're going to get stronger. But at some point, you're going to start to plateau. And the easiest ways to break plateaus are better programming and obviously getting better at the lifts, become more efficient with your technique, but having a calorie surplus. So the optimal, if we're talking optimal, I think we're trying to get at least 1 gram per pound of lean body mass a day of protein. So I weigh about 205 pounds. I don't know exactly what my body fat percentage is, but let's say it's 15. You do a little math, whoop do, ba ba bing, carry the 1, MC equals squared or something like that. And then I'm gonna eat about 190 to 200 grams of protein. I'm personally going to err slightly on too much rather than too little. A lot of people say, oh, if you're trying to lose fat or gain weight or whatever, the carbs and fat ratio don't matter. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think for powerlifting and that type of high intensity sports, carbohydrates are the most efficient way and most efficient energy for our bodies. So I think a slightly higher carbohydrate diet does help a lot of powerlifters, sprinters, and people that play those type of sports. And then you kind of fill in the rest of your calories with fats. So again, if my maintenance is 2,000 calories, we can do some of this math sometime if you guys are really interested, but it is basic math and there is calculators all over the internet. You can type it into Google or check out MyFitnessPal or do it yourself. I have other videos going more into detail, but if we're 2,000 calories for maintenance, we want to eat maybe 2,250, 2,500 calories a day then for a slight surplus. We're going to get a certain amount, again, our body weight in protein, and then we can kind of distribute the rest how we'd like per our lifestyle and our palate for the carbs and the fat. But I do think a higher carbohydrate diet is going to help in the long term. Now, things do change when you get a little bit more competitive and you want to hit a certain weight class, whether going up a weight class or going down a weight class and dieting and things of that nature. I do think for the majority of people that are trying to go down in a weight class, one, don't cut as much water weight as you think. Try to get closer to your game day weight as you can. Cutting water can be unhealthy. It can take away from your performance, and there's a lot more variables than just walking around at what weight you want to compete at. Another tip that if you want to get down in a weight class is diet in your off season, and diet a little bit more strict and not as long-term as you think. So if you want to drop 10 pounds, a normal person might tell you, and this is for competitive powerlifters, might drop a pound a week and take a 10-week cut. I actually suggest kind of doing it quick in a 5-week. So then you can get right back into maintenance or another slight surplus if you go below your weight class and get back to your strength training. The training while you're cutting or bulking should be very similar. The stimulus you're trying to give your body as a powerlifter, a competitive powerlifter, should be very similar. You may have to handle slightly less loads and slightly less volume as you're cutting because you obviously just have less energy for the gym and less recoverability because lack of calories in your days off or the other hours. So when you're bulking, you may be able to handle a little bit more load. You may be able to progress a little bit faster because, again, not only do you have more calories for energy, more calories for recovery, but you are gaining slightly more muscle and you're gaining a little bit of fat, which can help in the long term. So hopefully that answers you guys' question on what's optimal for nutrition, for powerlifting. The specifics will depend on the individual, and that's where the kind of uniqueness, snowflake stuff does come in. If brown rice tastes better to you and sits in your stomach better than white rice, go ahead and do it. If you want to eat a Snickers before your deadlift session because it feels good mentally and physically, go ahead and do it. If candy gives you acne and makes you poop all day long, don't eat a Snickers before you deadlift, and that's where the individuality is. But the macronutrients long-term, the calorie surplus long-term is what's going to allow you to get stronger. I appreciate you guys. We'll catch you in the next one, Monday and Thursday. Silent Mike, I'm out.